Tom was basking in the sunlight, his fur gleaming as he dozed on the porch. Suddenly, the smell of cheese wafted through the air, making his whiskers twitch. Inside the house, Jerry had discovered the mother load a massive wheel of cheese left unattended on the kitchen counter. Knowing Tom would be on the prowl, Jerry devised a plan to transport the cheese back to his mouse hole. He tied the cheese to a string and slowly lowered it out of sight, hoping to sneak it past Tom. But Tom, always alert, caught a glimpse of the disappearing cheese and sprang into action. He darted into the house, his eyes locked on the dwindling cheese wheel. Jerry, quick on his feet, scurried away with the cheese, dragging it behind him as he dodged Tom's swipes. Tom chased Jerry through the kitchen, knocking over pots and pans that clattered noisily to the floor. The chase led them into the living room, where Tom slept on a rug and tumbled headfirst into a lamp. Jerry, laughing, sped past, the cheese still in tow, but his giggles caught Tom's attention. Tom quickly regained his footing and pounced, landing right on top of the cheese wheel, squishing it flat. Jerry froze, his eyes wide with horror as his precious cheese was reduced to a pancake. Tom smirked, but his victory was short-lived as the cheese squished out from under him, sending him flying backward into the wall. The flattened cheese shot across the floor, coming to a stop right in front of Jerry's mouse hole. Jerry hesitated, unsure whether to mourn his flattened cheese or celebrate his narrow escape. Tom shook off his daze and lunged for Jerry, but the little mouse darted into his hole just in time. Inside, Jerry sighed as he looked at the ruined cheese. His feast was now just a memory, but at least he was safe. Outside, Tom sulked, staring at the mess they had made of the living room. He was tired, but not defeated. He would get that mouse one day. Days passed and Tom was more determined than ever to catch Jerry. He spent hours setting elaborate traps all over the house, each one more cunning than the last. Meanwhile, Jerry had grown cautious, sensing the increasing danger every time he ventured out. The tension between them grew, a silent battle of wits and reflexes. One morning, Tom set his most devious trap, yet a complex contraption involving a swinging broom, a bucket of water, and a pile of marbles. He was certain this would be the end of Jerry's antics. As Tom hid behind the couch, watching and waiting, Jerry cautiously emerged from his hole, sniffing the air for danger. Spotting the cheese placed strategically under the trap, Jerry's instinct screamed that it was too good to be true. But the temptation was too strong, and he inched closer, every muscle tensed for the inevitable trap. Tom held his breath, waiting for the perfect moment to spring his plan into action. Just as Jerry reached the cheese, Tom pulled the string, setting the trap in motion. The broom swung down, the marbles scattered across the floor, and the bucket tipped over, spilling water everywhere. But Jerry was quick. He dodged the broom, leaped over the marbles, and dashed out of the way just as the bucket crashed down where he had been standing. Tom, in his excitement, had forgotten to secure his own footing. As he lunged forward to grab Jerry, he slipped on the marbles, skidding across the wet floor and crashing into the wall. Dazed and soaked, Tom groaned in frustration as Jerry calmly walked up to him, snatched the cheese, and darted back to his hole. Tom sat there, drenched and defeated, as Jerry nibbled on his prize from the safety of his home. But instead of feeling victorious, Jerry glanced back at Tom. Seeing the sad, tired look in his eyes, for the first time, Jerry felt a pang of sympathy for his eternal foe. Tom's traps, once thrilling challenges, now seemed more like desperate attempts to find meaning in their endless game. As days turned into weeks, something shifted between Tom and Jerry. The chases continued, but they were no longer as intense, the stakes somehow feeling less urgent. One evening, as Tom lay on the porch, staring at the setting sun, he noticed Jerry sitting quietly beside his mousehole, also watching the horizon. The two enemies sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts, until Tom, breaking the unspoken rule, spoke up. "Why do we keep doing this, Jerry?" he asked softly. Jerry, surprised by Tom's sudden question, didn't know how to respond. They had been chasing each other for as long as they could remember, but neither had ever questioned why. Tom sighed, closing his eyes. "I'm tired," he admitted. "Chasing you, setting traps, always being on the lookout, it's exhausting." Jerry watched him, feeling an unfamiliar weight in his chest. He had always thought of Tom as the villain in their story, but now, seeing him like this, he realized they were both just playing roles in a game neither could escape. That night, as Tom slept on the porch, Jerry approached him cautiously. He placed a small piece of cheese next to Tom's paw, a gesture of peace, before retreating back to his hole. When Tom woke up the next morning, he found the cheese and smiled, understanding the silent message. For the first time, he didn't feel the need to chase Jerry. Days went by, and the house was strangely quiet. The usual crashes and bangs were replaced by a calm that settled over the home. Tom and Jerry still saw each other, but the chases were now half-hearted, more out of habit than anything else. They shared a mutual understanding, a truce born from years of rivalry and the realization that they were both just trying to survive in a world that pitted them against each other. One day, as they sat together on the porch, watching the sunset, Tom looked at Jerry and smiled. "Maybe we don't have to chase each other anymore," he said. Jerry nodded, his tiny eyes reflecting the fading light. They had found a quiet peace in the end, an understanding that went beyond their roles as cat and mouse. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, Tom and Jerry sat side by side, no longer enemies, but perhaps, in some small way, friends.